Greetings, Zimbabwe, Africa, and the world. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Titan Law. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today, I'm in conversation with Monica Musonda, a corporate lawyer and corporate governance expert who is the founder and chief executive officer of Java Foods in Lusaka, Zambia. Enjoy this inspirational conversation. So, Monica Musonda, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor. I'm absolutely delighted to have you from all across Lusaka in Zambia. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
So, Monica, let's just set the background. You are a qualified English solicitor. You are a Zambian advocate with 16 years experience. You qualified with Bachelor of Laws from the University of Zambia and a Master of Laws from the University of London. You are a 2013 World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. You are a Desmond Tutu Leadership Fellow. And then you suddenly decided that you'd get into manufacturing. We'll get into that. But let's start at the beginning, if we may, Monica. And the beginning is, I saw somewhere that you say when you're young, you were a quirky kid, very independent-minded and fearless. Tell me about your upbringing, Monica, the stuff that shaped who Monica is right now.
So I grew up in Zambia. I'm a daughter of professors and teachers, so always very inquisitive and curious, and was fortunate enough to grow up in several places. Actually grew up in the United States and then moved back to Zambia when I was about 10 or 11 and did the rest of my high school and university here. But you see, the formative years and also growing up in a household that I did, everything was, you could ask anything and you could do anything. And really, the only thing they wanted, first generation educated family, was that you must finish school. And I'm sure my story is very similar to many, many people on the continent. And they were very focused on me doing the skills, whether you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, those sorts of things, and very much encouraged me to do that. But aside from that, they were very happy for me to be inquisitive, to write. I call myself quirky because I used to climb trees. I'm the only girl in my family. I used to climb trees. I could do anything. But I was also, as I said, fearless because I wasn't afraid to do anything. But I was encouraged, and I'm so thankful for that because it's had an impact in everything I've done later on, in all the changes in my career, in the moves. I've lived in so many countries as an adult, as a professional, because I was fearless and nothing held me back. So I'm really grateful for my upbringing. As I said, it was in the US, but also in Zambia, so which is also very important. So I do know where I come from. I have, a background. I have family, and it's very important.
So did that environment then, is that what influenced you to study law? Was it your own drive to study law, or there was the professors within the family pushed you towards getting into law?
Gently pushing you in the right direction, right?
Right.
But also kind of saying, I think you have the personality for it because you are inquisitive, you ask questions, you are curious, you like to read, and you like to mediate, if that's the word I'll use. So I think they were like, I think this works for you. And I was very excited to do it at the time. And I did it for a long time, Trevor, actually. So I enjoyed it thoroughly, actually.
For how long?
So I worked as a lawyer for almost 16 years before I had a come to Jesus moment and change my whole career, right?
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that Jesus moment later on. I'm looking forward to that. So then you did work at the Attorney General's office in Zambia, and one of the things that we're doing is the privatization of state-owned enterprises. I found that interesting, particularly given where we are right now. The whole conversations about how wasteful state and owned enterprises are. What was your experience in that regard? And looking back now, do you think the stuff that you did has remained unchanged?
It was really an important time for Zambia. A realization that state-owned enterprises, as they were then structured, were not working for the economy. I mean, the economy in the early 90s was not functioning. Just there was a lot of assets, but nothing really working, and copper prices were really quite low. So Chiluba at the time then took advice and decided that this was the only way to actually bring investment in the country, investment of the right quality, of the right amount. I mean, you needed quite substantial investment across the board in the economy. And he actually took advice. So the country was advised by some of the top advisors in the world, both on the legal strategy, on the acquisition side and negotiation. So we had a really great team, and it was a very interesting time for Zambia because everybody knew this was the way forward, and they knew that was the policy. There was a total buy-in in Zambia for privatization at that time. Perhaps the way, I mean, if you remember ZCCM, which was the conglomerate of the mines, I think the only thing was about, should we break up the mines or should we sell it as a whole? And at the time, they felt the best thing to have done was to sell it, to break it up, basically. Yeah. The only downside to privatization, which we feel now, is the fact that we excluded or did not bother to sell the assets to Zambians. So the focus really very much was bring an investor from Japan, Canada, the US, South America, who are very good in certain areas. And we had the best of the best in the early 90s in terms of investors in Zambia. I mean, from various parts of the world, as opposed to now where we have quite a lot of Chinese investment. So very different when we did the privatization. And I think the biggest issue for Zambians now is, why did we not try to privatize some of the assets, maybe strategically so, and to support Zambian industrialists at the time to acquire those assets? So the problem now you see is that we start from zero, and the landscape is no longer competitive because people bought assets very cheaply. And now we're having to start from scratch. So I think that's the only criticism of that time. But I think they tried very much, and it really brought a sense of private sector involvement in the economy, which was needed.
So there's not been any reversal of some of those privatizations that you were involved in?
In recent times, what we're seeing is the state is kind of getting back into business. Recently, we've seen through a holding body in Zambia that they've gone back into some things like milling, into agriculture, into key sectors, key economic areas, in order to, I suppose, protect the wealth of the country. I mean, I think we wait to see if that's the right approach. Whether it will be wasteful or not. I mean, we've had the experience before. Is it really the right thing to do? Private sector should be private sector. We know how to run business. You don't have to go back to the treasury. We don't have that luxury. But when you have a hole, you just go back to the Minister of Finance and they write you a check. That's not how you run business. And so, but I mean, Zambia is still very much private sector led, but we are seeing some creeping in back, yeah.
And then you went and worked for some blue chip law firms. I mean, Clifford Chance in London, Edward Nathan in Johannesburg. Speak to me about that experience and the big takeaways from that experience.
I think it was how fortunate I was to work for some of the best firms in the world and to get the right foundation. I'm still a very good lawyer because my foundation was very good. And what was interesting, I mean, I think London, I was a very junior lawyer, but also learned the ethics of hard work. We worked a lot, actually. The timing, you could work all night, and that was what it was. But you're also young, and therefore you could do it. And then my time in South Africa with Edward Nathan was also exceptional because it was a time when we were looking at South African businesses acquiring companies and assets outside of South Africa. So I did a lot of work for MTN when they were looking for licenses. I did Zambia, Namibia, which was not successful, Congo, Brazzaville, Nigeria. So worked with a lot of South African companies as they were growing their base. It was excellent, really interesting. Did some work for Sasol, for Old Mutual. And I loved it because it was, for me, being Zambian, it meant that I was able to do much more work on the continent and was not confined to one country. So I had the benefit of really growing my corporate law experience off the back of a booming time for many South African businesses. So that was, it was the very, the early days of real expansion. Which
Black economic empowerment, was this part of it? Black economic empowerment in South Africa?
it was the time when we was just starting and kicking off. And so often the time my colleagues at the firm would say, we really should be focusing on South Africa, Monica. This is where projects are well funded, there are opportunities here. Why must you go out to Tanzania to go and do a tender? But you know what's so interesting, Trevor? Every South African firm in the last 5 years has an Africa practice. So Edward Nathan was very much before their time, looking beyond their borders, following their clients as they expanded. Because now everyone has a practice and understands the value that South Africa is not an island. Yes, they have big transactions, but they're not alone. I mean, the continent works as one, particularly on business. And that's what was exciting about that time.
And then you then joined the IFC as a senior counsel there. What are your biggest takeaways for that? I mean, again, an amazing exposure to international best practice. Talk to me about that.
So the move was strategic for me, having worked on the continent and really wanting to do more work outside of the continent to expand my horizon. And the opportunity arose and I moved to Washington to work in the legal department in Washington for IFC, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank. And they finance businesses across the board, and they only finance private sector. So it was really exciting, from doing a telecoms deal in Papua New Guinea to doing work in Argentina to restructuring in Barbados. It gave you the opportunity to, one, travel to all these great countries, but to do transactions outside the usual. So we did advisory services, we did social impact kind of projects as well, which I would not ordinarily have been able to do had I stuck with a firm. But it was also an interesting time for me because I kind of stepped into kind of a governmental type kind of environment.
Bureaucracy of some sort.
Yes. So don't get it twisted. They're still kind of like civil servants, but not, so then it was a first kind of understanding of how it works in that kind of environment about, it's about tenure, how long you've been there, So it was not quite for me. It was kind of the shortest work stint. I was only there for 2 years, but it was a really interesting time because I was able to do work outside of of the continent and different type of work.
And then you went to join Dangote. What is it like working for Africa's richest man? I mean, that must have been a fascinating experience.
And first was, so if you thought I'm in my first crazy step, because I think most people would say, why are you leaving the cushy job of the World Bank to go live in Lagos, Nigeria for some guy who we're not really sure he's going to survive and things like that. But the thing is, when I was at IFC, we financed Mr. Dangote's cement plant, his first cement plant. And that's where I got to know him. I was actually the lawyer on his transaction. And he was really curious to see this Black girl sitting on the other side and say, but what are you doing here? You should be on the continent. You should be coming to build your own country, Monica. And he said, but if you're interested, come to Lagos. I'm building this huge empire. And I mean, he had already built flour and sugar, etc. And I really wanted to be back on the continent. I felt that Washington was very, very far. And I got, it's far. I mean, Zambia, you can imagine that's a long distance trip. So I was very happy, and after some negotiations, I was able to move to Lagos. And I had done a lot of work in Nigeria before when I was in private practice. So I had a lot of very good friends who made the transition very easy. But it was definitely different. I mean, different working for a family-run business where you have, as you say, he's an enigma. He runs everything himself. Moving into where you're creating the systems. I had been used to where the systems are created. Being very, he made decisions there and then. He was very decisive. We moved very, very fast. We didn't sleep. It was thrilling, but it gave me insight into realization that we could do so much more for this continent. I mean, he's one man, and what he was able to do for Nigeria made me question what I was doing for my own country. But I completely learned a lot. I learned a lot less about law and a lot more about business, actually.
That's fascinating. Did you find, I mean, interesting that Dangote says you should be working for the continent, you should be working for your country. Was that a new thing, a new seed planted in you, or you were already having the pull back to the continent? Talk to me about that.
So, I think he really planted. I never took it seriously. For me, all I thought of, I mean, it must have been, I guess, the early 30s when I was just thinking about growth of my career. That's why I went to Washington. I didn't even think twice because I thought, well, you know, you must progress in your life. And this is the progression. Maybe progression is working in the West. When he talked about it, I was saying to myself, you know, it is possible to change things because you can see it in him. It is possible to build. It is possible to be somebody, because I'd never really thought about it. But he brought that to the fore and said, you know, Monica, I started with nothing. I mean, and I got a loan, and I'm not educated like you, but look at what we're doing. And there are many people like, but you could do so much more. So it really did plant a seed. Yeah.
So in a way, what you're saying is he inspired you somehow. He guided you towards the direction that you might not ordinarily had considered. Am I right?
That's right. That's very right. My first, to move back to the continent, to obviously take the job with him, and then also to encourage me towards to get out of the law, the comfort of the law, to do something completely different.
And indeed, Monica, you actually go out and do something completely different and actually crazy. I mean, from being a lawyer, a corporate expert, worked for the IFC and those blue chip companies, you decide in 2012 that you're going to start Java Foods. When was the first time that thought crossed your mind? As you were with IFC, with Dangote, in Johannesburg, where did the thought cross your mind that maybe this is something that I want to do? And where did it come from?
So actually, it came from many a trip we came to Zambia with Mr. Dangote. He's an investor in Zambia. And we used to come here a lot for due diligence and for stakeholder management. And I remember him always asking me every time we came, he said, but where are the Zambians? Like, where are the Zambian business people? And for many people who might know Zambia, it's very well run by multinationals or people who are not necessarily Zambia, the big players in private sector. And he really kind of made me question. He said, but you know, why are you people just employees? Why don't you guys why don't you run your economy? And actually, perhaps naively so, I just thought, oh, that would be really easy, you know. And I really felt I hadn't lived in Zambia for so long, remember? So I had left Zambia in 1996. And I'd still living abroad, working for other people. And my parents were now back in Zambia. I had retired in Zambia. And I would come out and look around and see things. And Zambia was doing relatively well at that time. And I was like, why am I not a part of this growth? Why am I living and working for someone else when I could be doing this for myself and my own country? And so I decided to make the move. It wasn't an easy move. They didn't want me to leave. I had a very, very good experience and really great job in Nigeria. But when they heard what I wanted to do, were very encouraging of it. So I didn't know what I was going to do, though, Trevor. All I knew is I wanted to do something in Zambia which had impact. I wanted to build a Zambian brand, something that people would say, yes, this is a Zambian brand. So the way you have an EcoNet everyone knows that is a Zimbabwean brand, a Zimbabwean company. In my mind, that was what I was looking to build. And I had to do a bit of work when I came back to decide where I wanted to play. And I thought that food processing, manufacturing was where I thought I had the skills and I could build something. It was a lot harder than I thought, actually.
Why food processing, Monica?
So Zambia, as you know, has the potential very much to be the breadbasket of Southern Africa. We grow food very well. We just don't process anything. And with the influx of modern, formal trading supermarkets, like a ShopRite, Pick and Pay, we could see them, coming around. So there was a market. There was a market. People wanted more products on shelf. We're looking for more local products. We're looking for Zambian products. It was a lot easier for the Zambian. And also people were eating differently. I mean, what I am eating or what I choose to spend my money on with respect to food is very different from what my parents were spending. So my parents would eat in shima or pap.
Yeah.
And now we would then spend our money on rice, on potato. You have so much more variety. So consumption patterns were changing. And I thought this is a great space for innovation, for change. It's right for easier distribution because of supermarkets. And I thought this is great. Let's try to do this. And let's try to do instant noodles, because I had just come out of Nigeria, where Indomie, the biggest instant noodle brand, is $1 billion business. I mean, they eat so much noodles there. And there are no noodles in Zambia. So first mover was great. And Zambia is a really big grower of wheat, as you know. We're actually a net exporter of wheat. So a lot of things pointed us in the direction for food, and it's actually was a good bet. It was a very good
Tell me about the challenges, the excitement, the ups and downs of trying to put this whole thing together. I read somewhere that you started it, you were funded by friends and family, which is a unique but African way of starting businesses. Tell me about that pain, the joy, and the downs of doing that.
Well, the joys of entrepreneurship is you will run out of money, and it's the fact.
Yeah.
You under budget, and someone, rent will be too expensive, or someone will not pay you, and you will run out of money. So very quickly, I looked around and I spoke to people who believed in what I was trying to do, in my tenacity and my commitment, and said, look, I need X amount of money. Would you be my first investors, basically? And, early days, people are like, yeah, sure. I'm interested in that. That seems like it could work. So, but it was the right thing to do when I think about it, because we were so small that I had no experience and I had not lived in Zambia. So I couldn't walk into a bank to say, would you lend me $10,000? They'll look at me and say, no way. So actually, it turned out to be the right process to take, to go to borrow from those who trust you and believe that you're not going to go buy a car. And so friends and family rounds are, what, as they call them, are probably your most important. So sometimes if you look around right next to you, and $100 can change something for you. So that's my advice to a lot of people. Sometimes start small, look around you, and then as you grow, formalize your borrowings.
Talk to me now about what your product range. Describe to me what Java Foods does, the lines that you are into, and if you've got samples there, this is the time to show off. Right.
So what our mission is as Java is to produce nutritious food products using as much locally sourced raw materials at affordable prices. We started off with an instant noodle brand because we felt that we could use Zambian wheat flour, which at the moment we only make bread and confectionery. We don't do anything else in the country with the wheat flour. So we thought that this would be a great idea. And we were the first instant noodle brand. And we actually set the flavor, the taste, because we were the ones who actually showed people this is what it is. And it is for you, because we did have imported brands, but they were very marketed at expatriates because it wasn't for Zambians. What we have done as Java is show everybody that Easy Noodles, which is our brand, that's the vegetable flavor, is for you as a Zambian. If you're on a budget, if you're a student, if you're a working mother and you want something really quick, you can have Easy Noodles.
And I love the packaging. It looks so
you see?
Right? Okay.
And many people will say, are you a Zambian brand? We didn't think it was a Zambian brand because of the packaging. That's the beef flavor. We have 4 flavors of noodles. This is the chicken flavor. And we have recently introduced a bit of spice in people's life, the spicy flavor. So that was our first product. And we did it, it was our only product for about 3 to 4 years, because we underestimated that the market knew what noodles was. We had to spend a lot more time marketing and saying this is how you prepare noodles, and it is actually it's the quick meal option, because there's nothing else in Zambia you can eat for this price. So I compete with bread. I don't compete with pap, because pap takes too long to cook and you have to eat it with something. This is already flavored and it takes 3 minutes. So and it costs you much, much less. So for us, this is your quick meal option. So from the noodle range, we decided to do a fortified cereal or a porridge made from maize soya, and we call it super cereal. We have 3 flavors.
Wow.
So this is the original. We have superheroes on them, and we have the family to signify it's a family porridge, and superheroes to show super, because it's got high energy, it's got protein, it's for immune building, really important in the times of COVID. That's the strawberry. And this is the the banana flavor. And you see, so this is a really nice package for your supermarket, but we haven't forgotten that we do have the informal sector who are sometimes very cash strapped, and that package is what the bulk of the cost is. So we do the same in a little kind of plastic bag. That's the 500 gram. So we do absolutely the same for the bottom of the pyramid as well. So much cheaper because the packaging. And then we also do a very nice single serve, 550 gram. Yeah. So, and then we also sell to schools and hospitals and mining companies in bulk. So we could do a 50 kg, a 25 kg, a 10 kg. We also will do it for NGOs who are doing school feeding or have a crisis. So at this time, we are really trying to speak to some of the NGOs who are focusing on support for COVID. We're also selling it into institutional customers who are focused on relief. As you know, during this time of COVID, we are really faced not only with a health crisis, but a food crisis. And because this is instant, add hot water or hot milk, and it's fortified, it's good for immune building, it's good for resilience and recovery. It is actually high on demand by many of our NGOs. So we have pivoted from convenience of noodles to now necessary nutrition, and we've used the porridge as the best way to actually get the nutrition out. I mean, there are a lot of nutritious products, but we felt affordability at porridge would be the best idea to do so.
So you, from what you've just shown us right now, it looks like you've been pretty deliberate in building a brand, its appeal, its packaging, and its offering. That's been deliberate, is it?
Yes, it has. And you have to, Trevor, because we compete against international brands here, coming out of Zimbabwe, coming out of South Africa, and your consumer is very much aware because of social media and aspires for good things. So you're not going to win and you're not going to sell if you're going to do things substandard. And there's no reason for you to do so because there's so much out there which helps you. I mean, I knew nothing about this, but I was able to put together a packet. You know, just because there are a lot of people that right now, locally, you can find locally who can design. This was all designed in Zambia, by the way. So I didn't go to Europe to do my design. It might have been printed elsewhere. This was actually the super cereals done out of South Africa. That's the box. But this design is all Zambian. So you'll be surprised about the skills that we've actually created. Our young people are doing many, many great things, and we really need to actually draw in on them and use these skills to build some of our brands.
What has surprised you about this adventure, Monica? What has surprised you, the stuff that you didn't know when you came in and you found, wow, it's possible?
So what has surprised me is resilience. And also we underestimate ourselves. I think people said to me, oh, no one is going to buy your product. You're not, you know, it's not possible. But actually, we found the Zambians wanted Zambian brands and were happy to accept a product which was good and was also affordable. On a personal level, what has surprised me is that I'm a little bit more resilient than I thought. I can survive on less. You know, when you're a high-flying lawyer, you don't think you could ever manage it without sort of Chanel and Louis Vuitton, and then you never wear them and you wear flat shoes every day. So you don't need all those things. And, you know, things really change. Your focus and your priorities really change. And now we focus on making sure we achieve Java's mission, making sure that I'm able to encourage others. You know, we can't achieve and we can't change things if I'm alone. We want many more people doing what I'm doing and to really change the economy.
Talk to me now about how big the operation here is. How many people do you employ in the first instance? And secondly, are you looking at the export market, for instance, as part of your growth?
Yes, so I started off with 7 employees and included my brother who still works with me. So it's kind of a family business. And now we're 42.
Wow. And
we will possibly be, I think, by the end of the year, almost 50. And mind you, it's a very automated process. So in the olden days, we'll probably have been much bigger. But now with modern machinery, we don't need as many people on the line and a lot of efficiencies now. So it's been really quite a journey. So that's how big we are. What was your second question?
The exports. Any by looking at exports as growth, are you already there, or it's an
So
ambition?
definitely, because we realize that we will not be able to grow as big as we can if we don't look to our outside markets. And that's the greatest thing about Southern Africa, that we are somewhat linked. We need to do better, of course, but I think, and I'll put this out there today, we are really looking for partners, those who are in these countries who are already in some form of food distribution that we can work with. Because I think we have a really good offering and a really, really good pricing. Remember, in the union, you don't have, in SADC, you don't have to pay duty. So we really should be able to compete favorably against international imports. And at this time of COVID, where supply chains are not working, this is even more why we must rely on each other.
You've already spoken about the effect that COVID has had on the business, and you're saying you're now pivoting. Explain to us the larger impact of what COVID has had on your operations, and how you're changing to embrace the challenges that you face.
So I got to say that I think it kind of took us by surprise, I think, sadly. It's not just me, I speak to big businesses as well. We kind of all thought it was over there. It was going to stay in China. And yes, we had some disruption in supply chains, but it wouldn't be here. So what COVID did is really just shock our whole system. We had depreciation of the currency in March, almost 25% immediately, and which meant the cost of many inputs for our products went up. So, and then you have an affordability crisis because the economy is not growing. People are out of jobs because of COVID, which means there's no pull from off the shelves, and I've just had to increase prices. So we saw with noodles, our leading product, that there was a lot less demand. Also, schools had closed. So, and schools are a very big market for us. So we saw very quickly that there was a drop in demand for our convenience product on the noodle side, but also then saw that there was a pickup from on the cereal side. But you see, you have to be kind of on your feet and really aware to catch some of these opportunities, because there's so much happening around you. I mean, imagine you wake up one morning and Zimbabwe has closed its borders, South Africa is closed. And the problem with COVID in Southern Africa is everybody did their own thing. We didn't talk to each other as neighbors. And then we had goods stuck in South Africa. Nobody knew how it was going to move because Botswana was closed and Zimbabwe was closed. And for 2 to 3 weeks, we were concerned if we were actually going to be able to produce product because the supply chain had been now disrupted. Absolutely. And the problem with this then becomes that Zambia, who had very slightly limited restrictions, Zambia was not on lockdown. We have put in place some measures, but the president was very clear to say that we could not survive a shutdown of the economy. Please, if you're key sectors, maintain health measures, but keep on going. But how do you keep on going if your inputs are stuck in someone else's country? Or if you're now buying at maybe 40% more than you did because of the depreciation. So COVID has had a really big impact, and we're still going through it, mind you. We are just starting. Our friends like China are on the tail end. We're still beginning. So the effects, every day we see something. Every week we're trying to, the situation changes. I mean, I don't know if you've heard, we've had 2 cabinet ministers who have been just this week pronounced with COVID. And so I think it's kind of making us a bit more nervous that are more numbers yet to come. So this new normal, what is it going to be like? So it is quite, it's quite chilling on a personal and also on the business side.
What do you think is the thing that you have had to encounter during COVID? Your new normal, that's going to stay with you forever as you reflect around.
So I think definitely looking at preparing for crisis. And it's really hard for SMEs because your crisis is, financing crisis is every day, and, theft and all the smaller issues. But boy, oh boy, COVID would not, a crisis like COVID is something like no other. And I think managing risk better, having really understanding how to shore up capital, in case of crises like this are really important. It's something I have learned, like, you've got to know how to handle things in crisis, how to slowly shut down a part of the operation, which if you need to, in order to survive. Because And we've never had to deal with this before, but it's something I've definitely learned about, how can we be more efficient? How can we save money in order for us to survive in the long run?
Mm. Monica, not having been, you are a corporate lawyer, you are a corporate expert, and now you're into food production. Do you think you found your purpose? Is this your purpose?
My purpose has been to disrupt the way things have been done in Zambia. I'm probably one of the first women in manufacturing. It is food manufacturing, but I'm one of the first women in manufacturing at this age. And I think it's disrupted things. So people are not used to seeing a Black woman managing a business of this nature. And I think it's really, my purpose has been to show other women and Zambians, as I said, because I think Zambians have also been used to not being in the front line for business, that we really need to be doing much more, and that it is possible. I mean, we're not a $50 million business at all, but we have definitely aspirations to be there, and we can get there. So for me, I think that is something I would like to be remembered for, that I stood up and did something completely different. Failed. I mean, I lost a lot of money to get here, but I think I'm still here. And it's slowly being recognized that I didn't give up when things were rough, and that we stuck to what we wanted to do. And we're being recognized for our mission of nutrition, being recognized as a business which is run and managed by a woman. I'm being recognized for bringing in my law and my corporate governance. I am being recognized and being allowed to join boards of very big listed institutions. I chair Airtel Zambia, as well as the Zambian Breweries, which are two of the largest companies here in Zambia. And I can tell you, maybe 5 years ago, it would never have been the case. And at my age, usually they'll be like, oh, you're too young, and you're
a woman.
But I can tell you, yes, and you're a woman. But I can tell you, these are businesses which who definitely see the value of having more women on boards, having diversity, having experience, and my legal background, but also the fact that I run a business in Zambia, and I have something to contribute. And I really appreciate the fact that the key shareholders have chosen me to do so.
Are you still on the board of ArcelorMittal?
I am. Yes, I am. Okay. That's right.
So
in South Africa.
International exposure too.
And it's great because, as you said, it's a South African listed business, completely different sectors. So having to learn how a big industrialists work, and really having to the sort of international battles as well.
So you say, Monica, that you are not yet a $50 million US dollar business, but it's your ambition to get there. What is success going to look like for Monica in another 5 to 10 years? What's the next big thing, and what is it that you're going to look back and say, I did it, and this is what I wanted to achieve?
So I think for me, what success would look like is many more products, but in Southern Africa. I mean, we have the ambition to be a Nestle or a Clover in Southern Africa as well, to be one of those players in packaged food in every country around us, that our products should be there. That is what success will look like for me, that I can walk into a supermarket in Mozambique and find super cereal on the shelf. That would be everything for me. That would be everything I worked for. And of course, the money would help.
Absolutely. The $50 million would help, eh?
Yes.
You are, in so many respects, Monica, a role model. And young women across the continent, I know, look up to you. In the first instance, what advice do you give to them when they look at you and see that you've actually started something, you are creating things, you're building products? What does it take to be where Monica is? What suggestions would you give to the young women and young men who are looking at you and wanting to be like you?
Sure. I think that's the first thing I'm going to say is it's not a straight line, and you can do it at any time. I think everyone says, "Oh, when did you know you could do it?" And my answer is that there's no perfect time to start your business or to do something completely different from what you might have been trained for, or to follow your passion. You will know the right time when things are aligned for you to take the step. The second thing is that it will be hard. I mean, there's nothing that is easy. It'll surprise you because you learn things. You could do the best business plan and you could never imagine what will come out of it. If someone said to me, throw it away, because the business will teach you. It'll teach you some hard truths. The markets will teach you some hard truths. But if you are open to learning, you will learn and get through it. So I think you've got to be resilient. You've got to be willing to take the good with the bad. And you've got to be able to fight it through. I mean, it doesn't take you with open arms, but are you going to get through it? Are you going to find a solution to get through it? And if you have that attitude, you will get through it. And sometimes it doesn't always work. And I'm fortunate that I've managed to get through it, but sometimes it's leaving one bit, but also starting something else to say, okay, maybe this pivoting the business or completely saying, nope, that didn't work, but let me try something else. It's not about you. The business but the idea might be too early, might be not a very good one. So I think you just have to believe in yourself. That is what I always say to people. Yeah.
So I hear you saying it's hard. It's not a straight line. Business is going to teach you. That's all stuff. That's all the frightening stuff. What's made you stand up and be successful? What do you think have been the contributing factors to who you've become?
We have a brand. Trevor, we never had a brand. We have a brand. People see me in the supermarket and say, are you Monica? Are you, or not even me. We'll see a member of my staff wearing a shirt. So do you work for Monica? And I'm so pleased in my own country that can happen. When I was a lawyer, I was nobody. I mean, you work in a building with a corporate, and that was all it was. But people recognize your work, recognize your product, recognize what you're trying to do. And I am so grateful for that. And to be at home to make that difference. I mean, it couldn't be any better.
What's the hardest thing or the biggest lesson that being in business has taught you?
There's so many, Trevor? I think the first thing is have a strong team. And I talk about you can't do everything, and that's the mistake many entrepreneurs make, particularly at startup stage. You're the accountant, the marketing person, the CEO, the strategist, and no one can do it better than you. It's very unlikely you're going to succeed if you have that approach, and that you're going to have to see how you can build the right team. The team is going to get you through it. And I know it's really hard to hire the best people at the beginning, but there are ways in which you can say, look, believe in my concept, either give them shares or, see how you can negotiate it. At least 1 or 2 key people who can help you through it, or even better, have a co-founder. I mean, something I wasn't able to do and which I wish I did. Start a business with someone who thinks is aligned with you, may have different skills, but it definitely helps if there's somebody else to get you through it. So a team is really important. The team that understands your vision, where you're going, I think that is one of my key lessons.
Have you ever had moments when you thought it was too hard, I need to give up, I made a mistake? Have you had those moments where you've doubted yourself?
Yes, when the numbers were very negative and we had no money. And this is even after I did my angel investors round with my friends and family, and it still wasn't working. I was like, what am I doing? But you're a lawyer. Why are you wasting your time on this? And many a time particularly when you see your colleagues or friends who you trained with doing very well, and you're unable to buy a new car or a property because you've got to invest in the business to get something through. And it's hard when they'll tell you, you're still putting money into that venture. Like, really, are you serious? So it's not easy. It really is not easy.
What kept you going?
The belief in self and the business. I believed in this, Trevor. I mean, I'm fully 110% committed to this. And I'll remain committed to carrying across, and maybe we'll pass on to a different CEO, but I think Java is my child, and I would like to see it grow and really succeed.
Java is your child. Amara is your child. And you have 45 other people that look up to you for a salary at the end of the month, and you have yourself to take care of. Talk to me about work-life balance. Does it exist in your life?
So not very good. I've got to say that it's been a very big struggle of mine. I'm quite an intense person and really get myself involved in work. But Amara really changed that. I think children don't wait, particularly when they're babies as well. And they demand it of you. So somehow really pushed me to reassess my priorities, reassess my health issues, making sure that I was looking after myself and giving my home life time. And so now people know that when I'm home, I'm at home. And sometimes you will not hear from me because I've got to do certain things around my home. But it's a work in progress. I'm working from home. I sat on my chair this morning at 8:30, and I haven't really seen Amara today. So it is really hard being a working mother, and working from home is even harder, actually.
How old is Amara, by the way? How old is she?
23 months, so almost 2.
So working from home is working from home, isn't it?
And it's really hard in the heart because you can hear her playing.
Yeah. Monica, our viewers all across the world love books. This is the favorite section of the show. Share with us the 3 or so books that you've read that have changed your life or that have impacted the way that you do things in life.
So I hope I'm not cliche by saying Sheryl Sandberg's book of Lean In. I read it at a time when you're really just talking about balance, about how do you make it work? Can women have it all? And I thought it was a really insightful book because it tried to help women say, to have it all, you have to have this as well. You have to put certain things in place. So I felt that book was really interesting and was very useful for me at the time in my life. I finished reading Michelle Obama's book, and I guess what I liked about it, there's some things I didn't like so much about it, but what I really enjoyed about it was that Michelle Obama is a strong woman, right? And we must celebrate strong women. It's obviously a very different life from my own, but in many, many ways, I appreciated that she was a fantastic lawyer, high-flying, but she took a step back to allow her husband to shine and to be the person that he was, but it is now her turn to shine, and she is taking that by the horns and allowing herself. So I enjoyed reading that very much, to just really understand about her. And then on a softer side, something I read when I was in high school, which I read again recently, is Miriam Abba's So Long a Letter. Okay. And it is a painful love story. And I say painful because someone is writing about how her life has changed because of a marriage which is broken down. The beauty of Miriam Abba, she's a Senegalese writer, is she was writing in the 60s and writing so well about the real issues that women face when they get married and, those sorts of things, and giving up a lot of things. But it's so beautifully written that every time I read it, I think that she was ahead of her time. She's now late, but was ahead of her time. So very different types of books, as you can see.
But beautiful books. Tell me, what is it that you didn't like about the Michelle Obama's book? What aspect didn't sit well with you?
Well, I guess I think she's just very different from the woman I identify with. That's what I meant.
Okay.
She wouldn't be my mentor. I think and I just have a different. We have a different upbringing, and that's what I meant. So I read it merely for knowledge, I think, to understand what is Michelle Obama about, but she's not a mentor of mine per se. Yeah.
Who are your likely mentors, and do you have any mentees?
Yeah. Mentors, I think there are a lot of African women. There's actually several women who have achieved so many things while holding down several responsibilities. And gosh, if I can name a few. Irene Chandni, who's I worked for
MTN.
Irene. Yes, I worked for her as a junior lawyer, and I was so mesmerized by this woman who was just getting on with it. And she was, going into countries and saying, I want a license. And everyone was just looking at her like, who is this woman? And to this date, she's still shaking people up, Right. But a great woman, great family woman as well, family wife, mother, and just a real corporate titan. So I would identify much more, and I can't wait for her to write her story. Like, she must be telling her story as well. On mentee's side, in fact, too many, Trevor, because it's an amazing time for us in Africa right now, where everyone is looking that actually, I want to start something, but I've been too afraid to do it, or please show me the way. And sometimes I have to say no, because I just don't have capacity for everybody, But it's really, and both men and women who want to get into business, or who are also trying to succeed in law as well. You know, not everybody's set out to be an entrepreneur. Someone has to be a judge or a lawyer, and you get lots of questions about how to navigate an international career. What I think about now working for big law firms as opposed to starting your own, or joining a network of law firms around the world, things like. So it's been a really very different type of mentees. Yeah.
And I think just right there, Monica says why we've come to you, because we've been looking at your story, and your story is absolutely inspirational. And I'm not surprised that you have a lot of people coming to you and say, can you help us navigate life? So on that note, Monica, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for finding the time to be on In Conversation with Trevor. We have no doubt at all that your story inspires many. And we have no doubt that goal of $50 million business with products all across the continent will be realized. So we wish you all the very best. Allow me now, Monica, to tend to our viewers on the continent, across the diaspora, for continuing to watch In Conversation with Trevor. Thank you for supporting us. Remember, In Conversation with Trevor is a weekly show. For you not to miss out every time we have this quality conversation, please, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel by pressing this red button here, and you get an alert every time we have a new show. So until next time, cheers to you all. Thank you.